The night was cold and silent. Only the sound of broken lights flickering above the alley gave a hint that someone might still be awake. A small figure moved quietly through the shadows. She had no shoes, her alien feet bleeding from cuts, and her arms were wrapped tightly around a small baby. The alien mother looked around, her dark eyes wide with fear. She pressed her baby closer to her chest and whispered softly, "Just a little food, my love, just something for you." The baby whimpered, weak and hungry, his thin arms trembling from the cold. His skin, soft and light purple, looked pale. Under the city lights, across the street was a small human supply store. It wasn't guarded, but there were cameras. She knew the risk, but she had no choice. Her baby hadn't eaten in 2 days. She had begged, she had cried. But no one cared. Now she had to take it, even if it meant being caught. She waited until the camera turned away for a second. Then she moved, fast and silent, like the wind. She slipped through a broken window in the back, careful not to wake the sleeping dogs near the trash bin. Once inside, she ran toward the shelves and grabbed a packet of powdered milk and a few energy bars. Her hands were shaking, but her heart beat faster with hope. She turned back, ready to run again. But that's when she saw him. A tall human stood at the door. Holding a flashlight, he had a thick jacket, a rugged face, and eyes that saw too much. He didn't look surprised, only tired. "Stop," he said calmly. "Put it back." She froze, her whole body tense. Her baby made a small noise, and the man looked down at the child in her arms. His eyes narrowed. "I said, put it back," he repeated, taking a slow step forward, but she didn't wait. She clutched the food and turned around, pushing her way through the broken window again. She could hear him behind her now, shouting something, but she ran fast. Stumbling into the dark streets, her feet bleeding more with every step. The baby cried louder, but she kept running. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to get away. The bag of stolen food felt heavy now, but it was her baby's hope. She would never let it go. Behind her, she heard fast footsteps. The man was chasing her. She turned sharply into another alley, then another. Ducking behind trash bins and broken walls, her breathing was rough, her body weak. But her will kept her going. Suddenly, her legs gave out. Her knees hit the ground hard, and she fell forward. Barely managing to keep the baby safe in her arms, the pain exploded in her body. But worse than that, she couldn't get up again. The footsteps stopped near her. The man had caught up, but he didn't yell. He didn't grab her or hurt her. Instead, he stood there, looking down at her, his flashlight shaking in his hand. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "Please, please don't hurt my child." The baby coughed softly, then went quiet again. The man crouched beside her, frowning as he looked at the small bundle in her arms. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you steal from me?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. She just looked at her child and then down at her bleeding feet. The man sighed, then pulled off his jacket and placed it over the baby. "Stupid thing to do," he muttered, "but I guess I get it." She blinked in shock, her mind confused. Was this a trick? Was he going to turn her in? She tried to crawl back, but her body wouldn't move. Everything was spinning. "You're freezing," he said, "and your kitty's not going to make it through the night like this." He looked around, then back at her. "You need help?" She nodded slowly, barely conscious now. The baby gave a soft, weak cry. The man stood up and pulled out a small device from his pocket. He tapped something, then spoke quietly. "Bring a medkit to 41st Alley. Now, we've got 2 downed, 1 adult, 1 infant, possibly hypothermic." The last thing the alien mother saw before her eyes closed was the human kneeling beside her again, lifting her baby carefully into his arms for the first time in days. The child stopped crying, and in the silence of that broken city, something strange happened. A human showed kindness. She opened her eyes slowly, blinking against a soft light that warmed her face. It wasn't the street lamp or the cold sky she expected. Instead, a dull yellow glow surrounded her. The air smelled clean, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel the wind cutting her skin. Her body ached, her legs still numb. But she wasn't lying on concrete anymore. There was a thin blanket over her, rough but warm, and something soft under her head. She turned her head slowly, panic returning. "Where's my baby?" she whispered, voice hoarse and dry. A voice answered calmly, "He's fine." It was the human again, the same one she'd stolen from. He was sitting nearby, watching her with guarded eyes. "He's sleeping. He ate a little, cried himself." "To sleep," he added, standing up to walk over. Her heart raced. But she didn't have the strength to run. "Why didn't you turn me in?" she asked, eyes full of disbelief. "I should be in a cell right now." The man raised an eyebrow. "Maybe," he said, "but what would that do?" He handed her a cup of water. "You were starving, bleeding, and still trying to protect him. That's not crime, that's desperation." She took the cup slowly, fingers trembling. The water felt like heaven, every drop down her throat gave her body a little more life. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," she said softly. "I was just trying to keep him alive." "I know," the man replied. "Still dumb, though. You almost died." She stared at the cup, gripping it with both hands. She hadn't heard kindness in days, hadn't seen it in weeks. Most people didn't even look at her face once they saw her thin arms or her tattered dress. "I don't understand," she said. "Humans don't help us, especially not ones like me." He tilted his head. "Ones like you." She looked away, ashamed, slumborn, low caste, no ID chip. "I'm not even considered a citizen in most sectors." She looked up, tears forming in her tired eyes. "My baby doesn't even have a name." The man frowned, folding his arms. "Yeah, well, the system's broken," he muttered. "But I don't follow that part." She blinked. "You don't follow the law?" He smirked. "I follow what feels right." A moment passed, the silence filled with a distant hum of machines. Then she asked, "Where are we?" "My old storage unit," he said. "Nobody comes here anymore. It's off-grid." He leaned down, adjusting the heating panel near the wall. "You'll be safe here for a while." She stared at him, confused. "You're hiding me?" "I guess," he shrugged. "Call it a favor, but only until you can stand again." Her lips trembled. "I can't pay you back." He waved a hand. "Didn't ask you to." Outside, the world was still cold and cruel, but inside that tiny, hidden space, something strange was growing. Not just safety, but a fragile kind of trust. She sat up slowly, muscles weak, but willing. "Why are you really helping me?" she asked again, softly. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced toward the corner where her baby lay wrapped in a worn jacket. He walked over and gently adjusted the bundle so the infant's tiny head could breathe better. Then he turned, voice lowered this time. "I had a daughter once," he said. "Didn't make it." Her breath caught. "I couldn't save her," he said, staring at the wall now. "But maybe this time I can do something right." She looked at the man with wide eyes, suddenly understanding something deeper than words. He wasn't helping because she was alien or because he felt pity. He was helping because pain recognizes pain and loss remembers loss. She leaned her head back, closed her eyes, and whispered, "Thank you." He didn't reply, but his actions said enough in that quiet storage unit. An unlikely bond began to form, not of species, not of law, but of two broken souls trying to protect something small, helpless and innocent, and far above them, out in the world. The scanners had already picked up her stolen ID signal. Someone was coming, but for now, she slept again, breathing slowly, with her child safe in arm's reach, and a human stranger. Keeping watch at the door, ready to fight if he had to, even if the fight wasn't his. Not yet, but soon, it would be. Very soon, everything would change, for all of them. The sound of boots on gravel snapped him awake. He had been dozing in a folding chair just outside the storage unit door. A rusted pipe resting across his lap like a lazy weapon. But now his instincts kicked in, and he stood quietly, listening. It was too early, too quiet. No one came to this part of the city anymore, unless they were looking for something, or someone, inside. She stirred in her sleep. Her baby let out a tiny cough. She didn't hear the footsteps yet, but he did. He moved quickly, sliding the outer metal door halfway shut, just enough to dim the light without making noise. Then he slipped behind the crates near the entrance, a shadow among shadows. The footsteps grew louder. 2, maybe 3 people, military boots, heavy, deliberate, not patrol. Searchers, a deep voice called out, filtered through a device. Sector 9 storage, Quadrant C. Responding to a flagged signal, another voice replied, ID scan triggered here 2 hours ago. The signal's faint, but confirmed. The man cursed under his breath. He'd forgotten about the old chip implant still buried under the alien mother's skin. Even without an ID, the chip gave off a unique code locast class, tagged for control, and now the system had tracked her here. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small EMP coin. Old, illegal, and unreliable, but maybe enough to fry the signal for a while. He crawled back inside and gently shook her awake. "Hey," he whispered, "you need to take the baby and stay absolutely quiet." "Don't move unless I say," she blinked, confused and groggy. What's happening?" "They found us," he said flatly. "I'm going to deal with it." She clutched her child tightly, panic rising again. No, they'll take him. They'll take me back." "Not if I can help it," he said, slipping the EMP coin in two. Her hand, press the center and hold it to your skin. It'll kill the chip for a while. He didn't wait for her answer. He was already back at the door. Outside, the searchers had split up, checking the nearby units. One of them stopped right at his door. He could see a shadow fall across the narrow slit of light. Unit 1, 4C. The voice called, unlocked and warm. "Let's open it," another replied. The man stood just on the other side, holding his breath, as the metal door creaked upward. He stepped forward quickly, blocking the entrance. "Can I help you?" he asked, calm but firm. The soldiers stopped, surprised. One held a scanner. The other, a stun rifle. Both wore dark gray armor with the crest of the Inner Enforcement Bureau. "This unit was flagged for unauthorized presence," the scanner replied. Not lowering his weapon, "We need to check inside." He smiled politely. "There's nothing inside but old junk and rusty tools." He said, "This is private property. I've got the deed." He held up a small hologram key from his belt. "Your unit emitted an ID signal." The officer replied coldly. He shrugged. "Must have picked up something from a passing drone. Or rat with a stolen tag." Then he added, "Or maybe your scanner's broken." "That wouldn't surprise me." The soldiers didn't laugh. The man took a slow step forward. Just enough to make them uncomfortable. "You can file a request and come back with proper clearance," he said. "Or you can waste your time arguing with me while the real criminals get away." They stared at him for a long second. Then the one with the scanner said, "We'll come back." "Yeah," the man said. "I'll be waiting." The door shut. Again, loud and final. He waited a full minute before locking every bolt and pushing to crates in front of the entrance. Then he turned back, heart pounding, inside. She was holding her baby and crying quietly. The EMP coin was still glowing. Faintly in her palm, "They're gone. For now," he said, sitting down again, exhausted. She looked at him with wide eyes. "You could have given me up," she said. "Told them I broke in, blamed it all on me." He leaned back and stared at the ceiling. "Yeah," he whispered. "But I didn't." She was silent for a while, just watching him. Then finally, in a voice that shook, she asked, "Why do you keep risking so much for me?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Maybe because someone should have done it for my daughter." Outside, the boots faded into the distance. But both of them knew they'd be back, and next time, they might not knock first. Still, something had changed. He wasn't just hiding a stranger anymore. He was protecting a life. And he wasn't going to run. Not now, not ever. Rain began to fall the next evening, slow and soft at first, then harder as the storm built over the broken city inside the hidden storage unit. The ceiling leaked in one corner, but the heat panel still worked. Barely. She was sitting near it, cradling her baby close, humming something that sounded like a lullaby from another world. He was fixing a broken power cell using old wires and steady hands. The tools clicked softly, mixing with the rain tapping above them. Neither of them spoke for a while. Silence had become normal, a strange comfort between two people with nothing left to lose. Then, suddenly, she said, "His name is Kalo." The man looked up from his work, surprised. "I thought you said he didn't have one." She nodded slowly. "Not," smiling, "I never gave him one." "Not really. I didn't think he'd live long enough to need it." She paused, brushing a hand through the baby's thin hair. "But now, I want him to have one, and I want you to know it too." The man nodded, not saying much, but something tightened in his chest. He didn't know why that name, that tiny moment, hit him so hard. Maybe it reminded him of the night he named his own daughter. A name that no one said anymore. A name buried with her. Kalo slept in her arms, peaceful and warm for once. But peace wouldn't last long. The supply of food was running low. And now that the chip was fried, they couldn't even buy anything without triggering another alert. He stood up and grabbed his coat. "I'm going out," he said. Her eyes snapped up, full of worry. "No, it's too dangerous." "They're looking for us. They're not looking for me," he said quietly. "Not yet." He pulled the hood over his head and tightened the straps on his boots. "You stay here. Keep him warm. I'll be back before dawn." She stood as well, limping slightly but stronger now. "What if you don't come back?" she asked. "What happens to us?" He stopped at the door, not turning around. "You won't be alone," he said. "You never were." Then he was gone. The door shut with a heavy echo. Leaving her in silence, she stood there for a long time, just listening to the storm. He moved through the city like a ghost, avoided drones, ducked under scanners, used tunnels and bridges only old mechanics remembered. He wasn't a soldier, wasn't a fighter. Just a human who had lived too long in places where kindness died quickly. He knew who to talk to. A black market vendor in the old subway station owed him a favor. He traded spare parts, an old solar battery, and something else, something personal. A tiny silver necklace, once his daughter's. He didn't flinch, didn't cry. He just watched as the vendor placed food bars and medicine into a sack. A quiet trade, no words needed, but on his way back, he felt it, a shadow trailing him. Too silent to be a normal patrol, he ducked into an alley, pressed himself against a wall, and waited. Breathing slowed. Eyes sharp, a figure moved past, hooded, tall, alien, but not military. No armor, no rifle, just watching. He didn't know if they saw him. He waited until the figure was gone, then moved faster. By the time he reached the unit again, the sky had started to lighten. She opened the door fast when he knocked one slow. Tap, one quick. Their signal now. Her eyes lit up with relief when she saw the bag. But he raised a finger, eyes scanning the street behind him. "We need to be careful," he said. "Someone was following me. I don't know who yet." She stepped back. Letting him in, Kalo woke with a soft cry, and she quickly fed him from one of the new pouches. The baby's color returned. Slowly, the man sat down. Exhausted, she brought him a piece of dry bread. And for a moment, they just ate quietly. Side by side, rain dripped from his coat, formed a small puddle under his feet, but in that broken place, with danger outside and only a thin wall between them and the world, it felt almost safe, for now. She was singing softly to Kylo when the power flickered. The light panel above their heads dimmed, buzzed, then came back, once, twice, then died completely. Leaving them in full darkness, she held her breath, listening for movement, but the world outside was quiet, too quiet. The man stood slowly from his chair. Grabbing a small flashlight from his belt, he tapped the end twice, and a weak beam cut through the shadows. "Stay here," he whispered, and moved toward the breaker box in the back. She nodded, holding Kylo tighter, rocking him gently, but her mind raced. Something didn't feel right. The power was old, yes, and the wiring unreliable, but this wasn't normal. Not this sudden, not without sound. He opened the breaker panel, his fingers checking each fuse. Nothing was burned, nothing snapped, and yet the grid was dead. Then he noticed something worse, a fine, hair-thin line running across the edge of the panel. He ran a finger along it and paused. Cut, not broken cut. His mouth tightened, and he stepped back quickly. That meant someone had been here while they were sleeping. She watched him return, his face pale and eyes hard. "What is it?" she asked, voice shaking. He didn't lie. "Someone found us," he said. "They cut the power." Her knees weakened, but she didn't fall. She simply wrapped Kylo tighter in the blanket and stood up. Her eyes flicked toward the door, toward the bag of supplies, then back to the man. "Do we run?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "Not yet. If they wanted to take you, they would have come already." "This is a message," she frowned. "A warning." He nodded slowly. "They're watching, waiting to see what we'll do." Kylo whimpered. As if sensing the tension, she kissed his forehead and whispered calming words in her native tongue. Then looked up again, fire slowly rising behind her fear. "We can't stay here," she said. "Even if they don't come now, they'll return." "I know," he said, "but I need time. There's a place outside the city, a forgotten zone, where the scanners don't reach old land, bad roads, but no patrols." She tilted her head, confused. "You want us to hide in a dead zone?" He gave a tired smile. "Dead to them, maybe, but free for us." She thought for a moment, then said quietly, "I'll go wherever you go." As long as Kylo is safe, that stunned him more than he showed. Not the words, but the trust in them. Trust wasn't given easily by anyone who had been hunted, starved, and abandoned. He nodded. "We'll leave before nightfall. I'll get the transport ready. It's buried behind this block." While he gathered tools and cleared the hidden path behind the crates, she packed everything: food, medicine, the blanket, and the old EMP coin. She found a scarf in his drawer and wrapped Kylo in it, then tied him gently to her chest, his tiny arms peeking out as he slept again. By late afternoon, the rain had stopped, but the sky remained gray. She looked one last time around the small unit that had become a home. Dirty, cold, leaking, but still. It had saved them. The man tapped twice on the wall, then looked at her. "Ready?" She took a breath, then nodded. "Let's go." They stepped into the alley like ghosts. Silent and quick, he led the way through narrow passages, rusted stairwells, and behind collapsed buildings. The city was alive above them, flying drones, voices echoing from towers, but down here, no one looked. When they finally reached the transport, her eyes widened. It wasn't much. Just an old crawler with cracked armor and a faded paint job. But it still worked, and more than that, it meant movement, distance, a chance. He helped her climb in and strapped her in, then loaded their supplies, shut the back, and climbed into the driver's seat. The engine grumbled to life like a waking beast, but it moved, and that was enough. They drove away without lights. Under a broken sky, neither of them spoke, but the silence was full of fear. Yes, but also of hope. Hope that somewhere out there, beyond the edge of the map, there was a place no one would come looking. Not for a broken alien mother, not for a baby without a name, and not for a human who chose to care when no one else would. The road vanished behind them like smoke, swallowed by the city's edge and left to rot in the dust. They had driven through the night, avoiding the main routes, stopping only when the crawler overheated or when Kalo stirred in his sleep. Now the sun was rising, soft and pale, over the broken hills. This place had once been farmland, decades ago, before the corporations drained it dry and the soil turned to ash. He slowed the crawler near an abandoned structure made of half-melted steel beams and shattered glass. It looked like it had collapsed in on itself, but it still had 4 walls and a roof. That was more than they'd had before. He stepped out first, checked the area. No tracks, no noise, no heat signatures. Then he opened the side door, helped her down, and carried the gear inside. She stood silently, scanning the empty horizon. The silence was strange, not like the city silence, which always hid something. This one was wide open and real, the kind of silence that didn't care who lived or died. Kalo opened his eyes for a moment, blinked at the sky, and smiled. It was small, almost nothing, but she saw it, and she pressed her lips against his forehead, her arms trembling inside the shelter. Dust hung in the air like old memories. He swept a clear space near the corner and laid down the bedding, then set up the heater and placed the food in a covered box. She moved slowly, laying Kalo down on the softest surface she could find. He cooed, made a sound like laughter, then fell back asleep. They both watched him for a long time. Then finally she asked, "Is this the place you told me about?" He nodded. "Closest thing to freedom we're gonna get." She walked toward the broken window and stared out across the flatlands. "Does anyone live out here?" "Maybe some ghosts," he said, "but no patrols, no drones, no questions." She leaned on the frame, her eyes following a small bird cutting across the sky. "There's something strange about all this," she whispered, "like I forgot how to breathe until now." He understood. He felt it too. After everything, the chase, the hiding, the hunger, the fear, this emptiness felt like a dream, or maybe the edge of one. He walked over, handed her a warm pouch of food, and sat beside her. They ate slowly, sharing quiet bites. She looked at him, really looked this time, not as a rescuer or a stranger or someone to be afraid of, but as someone real. "You never told me your name," she said gently. He blinked, surprised, then smiled, like it had been a long time since anyone had asked. "Rylan," he said simply. "Just Rylan." She nodded. "I'm Siri." The wind passed through the cracks in the shelter, brushing her hair across her face. Rylan watched her tuck it behind her ear and return her gaze to the sky. He didn't know what to say, didn't know how to explain the strange weight he felt pressing into his chest. Not fear, not even sorrow, but something close to belonging. Later that night, as the temperature dropped, they lit a heat stone and wrapped Kalo in both their jackets. He slept between them, soft breaths rising and falling in a slow rhythm. Suri lay awake, watching the flicker of firelight on the wall. Then she said, "If you hadn't stopped me that night, I would have died with him in the street." Rylan didn't respond at first. Then quietly, "Yeah, I know." She turned to him. "Why did you care?" He stared at the flame, eyes unfocused. "I don't know," he said. "Maybe I was tired of watching people turn away." He paused, then added, "Maybe I just saw you. The way no one saw me when I needed help." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Thank you." And in that small, broken shelter, with a baby between them and nothing waiting for them beyond the dust, they didn't feel quite so lost anymore. But far away, in a glowing control room buried deep under the city, a red light began to blink, a slow pulsing signal the EMP had worn off. And Siri's chip had just come back online. They weren't alone, not for long. The sky cracked open with thunder. 2 nights later, rain fell in hard sheets, drowning the dry earth, turning dust into mud and silence into noise. Rylan sat near the open doorway, staring into the storm, his rifle across his knees. Inside, Siri rocked Kalo gently, whispering old songs from a world that no longer existed. The baby had grown stronger, his cheeks fuller, his hands gripping her fingers with more force than before. Life was blooming in him. Even while death crept closer to their door, Rylan felt it before he saw it, a flicker of light behind the storm clouds. Too steady, too sharp. Not lightning, he stood slowly, eyes narrowing in the distance. A low hum rolled through the air. Engines, he turned back toward Siri, his voice tense. They found us. She looked up fast, holding Kalo tighter. How? The chip, he muttered. EMP wore off. They tracked it again. He checked his gear, loaded the last rounds into his rifle, grabbed the bag of supplies, and tossed it at her feet. You run east. Through the old canyons, follow the signal. Marker I placed last week. There's a hidden passage that leads to the wildlands. She stood, her body shaking. What about you? I'm staying, he said. I'll slow them down, give you time. No, she whispered, eyes wide. They'll kill you. He didn't argue. Instead, he stepped close, reached out, and touched Kalo's small hand. He deserves a chance. Rylan said quietly, and so do you. Siri stared at him. At the man who had every reason to walk away, who owed her nothing, but who had given her everything. Then she did something she hadn't done since before she lost her home, her family, her dignity. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead gently to his, a wordless promise. Rylan nodded once, then turned and stepped into the storm. His figure vanished into the rain, swallowed by thunder and wind. Minutes later, lights flashed over the ridge. 3 hovercrafts dropped low. Soldiers in armor spilling out, scanners in hand, rifles raised. Siri slipped through the rear of the shelter, her legs carrying her faster than she thought possible. Kalo stirred, but she kept him close, whispering to him, not to cry, not yet, behind. Her gunfire broke through the rain, short bursts, then silence, then more. She wanted to turn back, she wanted to scream, but she ran. Rylan had made his stand near the old fuel drums. He used the terrain, the shadows, his memory of every corner. In that ruin, he hit 2 of them before they knew where he was. Then the rest closed in. He took a hit to the shoulder, but kept going. His last grenade he saved for the final moment when they were too close to escape the fire. The explosion lit up the rain. Like sunrise, then darkness returned. Siri reached the canyon edge and dropped to her knees. Gasping, she looked back once. No one followed. She pressed forward, through the rocks and into the narrow path he had marked. Hours passed before she saw the trees, real ones, wild and untouched, and she collapsed beneath them, tears mixing with the mud as she held Kalo tight. Days later, in the quiet of a forest, hidden from satellites and soldiers, she sat beside a fire. Kalo slept in a sling tied to her chest, his breath calm and steady in her hand. She held the signal marker Rylan gave her before he left. She stared at it for a long time, then buried it beneath a stone. He gave us this chance, she whispered. So we'll live. And from that moment on, in the wilderness where no one ruled, a broken alien mother began again. With nothing but a child in her arms and the memory of a man who stayed when no one else would.